Okay. So Amr Vashi, Amr Li, Sabe the Masa Machasia. The elders of the city of Masa Machasia told me, Stam Mashkanta, we had a discussion yesterday with two types of cities. One city where whenever the loiva came up with the money, it instantly dissolves the mashkanta. We had particularly a case where the figs or the dates that the malva was picking were already on the ground on his tarp. But if the loiva comes in and says, I'm paying, right away the malva has to stop taking payers. But even in such a city, stamashkanta shata, everybody agrees that for sure a year the malva has a right to insist that the mashkanta remains. So in the city who holds that you can't pay off any time, then the mashkanta period could be multi-year. But the minimum, even if you hold the loiva can dissolve the mashkanta at any time, the minimum is a year. Lamai nafkamina. What do I care about what the minimum is? Zog the Gemara. The ochel loshata. Once the malva has already eaten pears for a year, motzim misalikle. The loiva can say, "Take a hike. Here's my money." The iloi loy motzim misalik. But if not even a year has passed since the malva took over the field for a mashkanta, the loiva cannot be misalik the malva. From Rabashi, Amrli sabi de machasya, sabi de masa machasya. My mashkanta. What is the definition of the word mashkanta? Where did it come from? Sakti Gemara, the shchuna gabe, the malva holding this mashkanta is now considered as a neighbor. Lamai nafkamina. Who cares if he's a neighbor? Sakti Gemara, ladina dabar Metzia. There's a rule that if someone sells a field, the person who has kidima, precedence before anybody else, is somebody who anyway has a field bordering the field that's for sale, because it's better for him to buy because now he has one large contingent property. However, a malva who holds this field as a mishkanta, he's the first position to buy something because he's a neighbor. He's a neighbor from within. Less hilchasa. We don't paskin like the following people. Loy katarsha papinoi, veloy kishtore muchaznoi, veloy kichakire neshoi. So who are these people and what are these halachas? Katarsha papinoi is katasha derapapa. If you remember a couple of days ago, we said tarsha is regular terms where I'm giving you an option to pay later. And the case of Rav Papa was a very wealthy man, and he made beer out of dates. And he wanted to sell that beer when the shar was high in Nisan. However, he was willing to sell it to people in Tishrei 6 months early, but for the higher price of Nisan. So even though beer is available in the marketplace in Tishrei, but for a reduced price, he was willing to sell it in Tishrei, even though he was willing to accept payment in Nisan, so he was willing to accept the delayed payment, but he wanted full price for it. And he claimed the reason why that's not ribis is because I don't need your money. I'm more than happy making my beer, putting it in my warehouse, and then selling it in Nisan because I want top dollar. I'm doing you a favor. You want to be able to buy without money, I'll let you take it from me in Tishrei, but I still want my full price for it. So Papa said, from my perspective, there's no ribbis here. I'm not benefiting anything from the fact that I'm taking more money now. The Gemara said we reject that. Why do we reject that? Because if you look at it from the loivis perspective, if you look at it from the purchaser's perspective, they're paying more money due to the fact that they're not going to have to pay right away. That's agernotolei, and that's why it's usher. We don't do it. So that is the Tarshe Pupanei. How about Shtore Muchaznoi? Zokt Gemara, what is that? The Zok Filei Laravcha Akarna, the Kosev Lei Bishtara. What was this? This was the precursor to our Heteriska. what would they do? What they would do is as follows. They would either have property that they were going to sell or cash. So let's say Reuven goes over to Shimon, and Reuven tells Shimon, you don't have money, I have money. I'm a venture capitalist, you're going to be the entrepreneur. So I'm going to give you $100. Now, I expect that you'll be able to find some product to sell, and you'll be able to make my $100 into $200. So how does ISCA work? It's Metzia. The way it's structured is it's Metzia Pekadon and it's Mech Salva. We say out of the $100 that I gave this person to invest with, half of it is a Pekadon. It's my money that he's working on my behalf to create revenue. The other half, I'm just lending him. So if he sells now if he was able to make this 100 into 200, so what happens? What happens? Half of the money that I gave him, first of all, he has to give me back my $100. The $50 he has to give me because he borrowed it from me. The other $50 he has to give me because it's mine. It was my pickup. Now this money increased in value to $200, so there's $100 of profit. On the $100 of profit, he gives me 50, which is my profit from my pickup, and from the other half, the $100, the other $50 of profit is his because he borrowed the money from me. So basically, I'm giving him $100, and he's giving me back $150. So what they used to do when they wrote up the star of Iska in this city, in Mechuzoi, what they would do is they wouldn't write that I'm giving it to you, and half is pekadon, and half is a loan, and therefore, when it goes up in value, we each get our portion of how it went up. No, they just wrote the bottom line. You owe me $150. So they figured out what was the expected profit, and they just wrote a star for that final amount. So that's something that you're not allowed to do. Why? Because the Zach Rafcha Akarno. What they do is they don't write any details. They just write that Shimon's going to have to pay back to Reuven $150. So even though the way we cheshboned it out, it works out perfectly. It's only for his half of Pekadon, but the problem is with that. What's the problem with that? Omer Lei. I'm sorry. The problem is miyemer to have a raf. What if the investment doesn't go well? If the investment doesn't go well, being that the star just says that Shimon owes him $150, if he's not completely honest, he could pull that star, force Shimon to pay him $150, even though really Shimon owes him only the pekadon back, because if everything goes down, only the mill back, not the pekadon. So if he gave him $100, and instead of it turning into 200, it turns into zero, really all the loiva owes is $50, the 50 of pekadon, the 50 of the milva, the 50 of pekadon, he's not responsible for if it wasn't a pshia. But with the star that says he owes 150, it could come out that he will collect from the loiva much more than the loiva owes. So Miyamed Avarafcha, who said that there will be profit. Omerli Marbar Meimer Ravashi. So Marbar Meimer told Ravashi, I don't understand. You're saying you're not allowed to do that? Abba Avarachi. My own father Ameimar did just that. So how could you say that you're not allowed to do it? Let's say they come back and they say the investment went sour, right? So he believes them. He doesn't use the star that says they owe 150 to extract money from them. He believes them that the investment didn't go good, and therefore he won't demand it from them, even though technically he has the star to do it. Omer Lei, so Rabashi told Meimar, I don't understand how he told Marbar Meimar that's not a good idea. As long as your father is alive, he's very trustworthy, and he's not going to go after them because he knows that there was no Rafa. But what if he dies? The Yosy, they don't know what happened. So for Yosy, you must. So that's going to cause a loss. So that's why the star shouldn't be written. But what happened is Rabbi Ashi suggested, what would happen if a Meimar would die? Havikishkoga sheyoitzas mifle shalit. It's like the mouth. This is quoting the pasuk. It's someone mentioned something. We know there's a word, there's a concept of al tiftach pel something. Rabashi said those words, and the Noch nafshe da memer. The memer died. Okay, so that is the shtara mechaznoi. What's the third thing that we said you're not supposed to do? Zakta Gemara, chakire nershoi. What does that mean? The kas v'hachi. This is what they would write. Mishkin leplanya ara leplanya. So let's say Mr. Loive provided a field to Mr. Malva as a mishkanta. We already discussed how that works. If you do it with nechiaisa, it's allowed, we said, at least not for a trufim or a button, but for a regular person, if the malvus is saying, yes, I have control of your field, but I'm going to reduce your loan by $10,000 per year, that's something that's allowed. It's not mechsekaribis, because he's taking full responsibility for the field because of the money that he's paying to rent it. But what happened here is the malva now took control of the loiva's field, but the malva is not a farmer. So what does the malva do? He hires the loiva as a cheker. What does a cheker do? He's like a nurse. He works somebody else's field. But instead of him sharing in the profits, he bids on it, and he gives you a fixed amount. So what happens is now this loiva is going to be the cheker. So what the loiva is going to do is he's going to say, I'm going to work this field on your behalf, Mr. Malva, even though it's really his field. It's really the loiva's field. It's only by the malva as a surety. The loiva says, I'm going to work the field for you, and I'm going to pay you 1,000 bushels a year from the fact that I worked the field, and now I'm going to keep the rest. So now what did it do? Now what it did was it puts the situation into a state where now the malva is guaranteed a profit, because this cheker, he obliged himself to a specific amount that he's going to pay this year to the malva, whether or not the field produces fruit. So that's going to be looking like ribbis. So Zok to Gemara, Chakir din Ashari, the Kasi Hachi, Mishkin Leplanya, Ari Leplanya. Mr. Loive gave his property to the malva as a surety. And then he's now taking it back and working the field for a fixed price. Zok Rashi, Chakir Nishari, so you Bali Batim, Malva Mois Lanim, also they say, Bali Batim would lend money to Aniyim and take the fields as a surety. But then the Chayshim, the Chayker Moisam Lahem, Bekach Bekach Kuran Lashana. But then they would now give it back to those same loives and say, you're going to pay me a fixed amount per year to be able to work your field. So that's going to be a problem. Well, one of the reasons is Tosis mentions is because it looks like ribbis, because now the malva is getting a fixed amount no matter what. But the Gemara goes on. The Gemara says, Eimas kana. When, at what point was the malva kana? Eimas kana. When was the malva kana? The akne nahalei, that he could be makned back to the loiva. As Rashi explains, Amos Kani Malva lahachsoda, the akne nahalei labai lematois chakiris. If you own a field, you could then give somebody a chakiris contract, but this doesn't belong to the malva. So therefore, how do we perceive this whole thing? Nimsa noitel ribis ktutza. Now the way we look at it is that I lent you money, and at the end of the day, I'm getting a fixed amount of payers from you every year. That's the Rashi's ribis ksutza, the Rashi dika ribis, shari ein tareach ba. The malva is not doing any work on this field. The loiv is doing all the work. The af im tiloka lo yafsid mechakirosei. And even if the yield of the field is zero this year, the malva will still get his set fixed amount that he agreed to with the lawyer.
Is the problem that he didn't make a kinyan?
So Tosfos says it's because ultimately it looks like ribbis. From a standard person looking at it, the malva gave the loiva money, and the loiva is giving back the malva money plus a bonus per year. It's ribbis.
But they're making kinyan. It's like maybe he sold and he sold back was.
I hear, but I guess he didn't. I guess there was no proper kinyan. So Zok to Gemara, nowadays, where they do this, what do? What they do is kanina me. He did a kinyan for me. This is what they write. Kanina mine, I was actually kanya the field, which is exactly what Chaim is suggesting. Vishahina kama idni, and I waited a little while. And then v'hada chakra, and then we did a deal of the chakiris. Now we do allow you to do it that way. Why? Shaloi kidei shaloi tinel delnas b'fnei lovin. Because if we don't give a malva any way to make this work for him, it's going to cause that malvas aren't going to lend levis. Shapradami, it's allowed, but v'lav milsi, it's not. So let's see Rashi. Shahina kama ivnin biyad hamalva. If first the malva takes the field and he does not do the chakiris for a little while, and then for the first season, the malva worked the field himself, and only the second year about the chakrimine shabadami that looks bad. Why do we allow you to do it? Even though the Lamaisa we discussed just a moment ago that it's somewhat problematic, we allowed Kedei Shalatina Odelas so that people should be willing to lend money. The Chivin de Shehia Gabe, since it did remain by the Malva before the Chakiris was set up, V'yochal Klashnin, and he ate it 3 years. So Rashi says even for 3 years he has to do it that way. Mali Ovid Ba'iu, Mali Chakri, what's the difference? What's the difference? The Labmel sees up Rashi. Now, Filu Shia Nami Osir, it'll still be Osir. The Ribbis Gemuri, that's still Ribbis. She'in kan Suffolk. This doesn't look like a suffix where if he's doing it himself, it could work, it could not work. No, here he's getting a guaranteed amount. It's not going to be allowed. So this you see that there's a kula shalatin al delas, and I think David mentioned this on Shabbos that if it causes that there's not going to be all these chumash, so to speak, have the opposite effect of what the Torah wanted. Why is it that you're not allowed to take ribbis? You're not allowed to take ribbis because the Torah is telling you, from your brother, you don't take ribbis. In other words, the Torah was very demanding from Klal Yisrael as to how they treat their brother. For instance, the Torah says, "For my brother, a brother who doesn't pay you, you're going to come down on him hard. A brother, you don't do that. If he can't pay you, you don't ask for the money back." So once every 7 years, the Torah made a shemitah that you can't even ask for the money back. But why? Because the Torah wants from us the highest level of chesed. The problem is that wasn't happening. Klal Yisrael was not holding the buy, and that highest level of chesed wasn't happening. So not only did the highest level of chesed not bring Klal Yisrael to a higher level of chesed, the Chacham saw that this higher level of chesed caused that there should be zero chesed. It had exactly the opposite effect, and because of that, they made these takanos latino delas. At least let Klal Yisrael do normal chesed. If not the uber chesed, because the uber chesed is going to cause no chesed at all. Okay, so now the Mishnah is going to focus on the last thing we discussed, and this is this concept of chatzi milva, chatzi bikoden, this iska structure. Now, we discussed this iska structure. The investor provides $100. The entrepreneur takes that $100 and makes profit with it. And the way it's structured is that 50% is a loan, meaning if it goes kaput, the entrepreneur has to pay back the venture capitalist. But 50% is a pekut. If it goes kaput, it's a total loss by the investor. Now, the part that's a pekut, the profit of it goes straight to the investor. The part that's a milva, the profit would go straight to the entrepreneur. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, why should an investor do that? Why should he just like that give up half of his investment? Why wouldn't he say it's all pekut? The teretz is, which entrepreneur is going to work for free? But you're going to give me your $100, I'm going to make it into $200, and I'm not going to get a penny of it? So obviously what's happening is the only reason why I'm willing to work on your Metzia Pekadon without charging you a fee for investing and bringing you great profit from your investment is because you're giving me an opportunity through this transaction to do the Chatzi Milva so that I can benefit. But now come to Chois, I'm paying you for the loan. How am I paying you for the loan? I'm providing you a free service on investing the Chatzi Pikadon. That's mamish ribbons. So therefore, Zok Teleg Mishnah, Ein Moishiven Chenveni Lamach Tischar, Veloyitin Mois Likach Bamperis Lamach Tischar, Ella Imkain Noisin Loischore Kapoil. The halacha is this transaction will only work and won't be ribbis if, besides the fact that the worker gets half of the profit for the chelik hamilva, but you also, as the investor, have to pay the worker for the work that he did on your chelik of pikadon, so that that's paid for independently, and there's absolutely no payment for the halva. So therefore, if you want to make such a deal, the investor has to pay separately a service charge, a fee, so that the person doing the work gets his fair pay. So someone's asking why not make two stars. I need you to speak up because I don't know exactly what you mean. The fact is, it's one. You could do the same thing with two stars. Why would that help? One's a milva, one's a pikad. I'm not sure why.
So separate the two. Yosy, that's what I'm saying. Separate the two.
You can't. You could make it into two transactions, but the fact is, why are you giving this guy a free loan? You're giving him a free loan because you want him to work on your pikad half. No one does anything for free. So the fact of the matter is, if you don't pay for his work on the part that's a pikad, ultimately what you're doing is you're only willing to go into this is because he's working for you. That's him giving you ribbis. Okay, so let's see what the second.
Isn't a commissioned somebody that's 100% commission? It's the same thing, isn't it?
But this isn't commission.
I'm saying it's analogous to somebody.
No, if you're working for commission, that means it's all pikadon. It's all pikadon, and you're getting paid for your work. You're getting paid a commission. That there's no. It's all pikadon. The nafkamina would be if it goes bust. What if it goes bust? If it's all pikadon that goes bust, you have no loss. Chatzi milva means if it goes bust, you still got to pay back the milva part.
So what's in peril here, Yosy? Is it the pikadon money that we have an issue with, or is it the milva issue?
The question is the malva benefiting from giving the loan, and is the loiva paying? Is he providing something as a bonus due to the fact that he received the loan? Right, that is the definition of ribbis. The malva receiving something for the use of his money, and the loiva paying for the use of the malva's money. If the loiva is providing a free service to the malva by working on the chatzi pikadon, well, there the loiva is paying, and the malva is receiving something as a thank you, as a benefit for the fact that the chatzi is a milva.
I still don't understand. So does the pikadon smell bad, or is the milva smell bad?
The milva is now milva beribis. The loan now becomes ribis because the loiva is providing to the malva an extra service besides paying back the loan, which you're allowed to do. You're paying back the loan the same amount that you borrowed. The loiva is giving the malva extra. He's giving him a free service, and he's investing the half of the money that was given to him as a pikadon. So he's being a free shaymer socher, basically. I'm providing you services, and I'm not getting paid for them, but I'm doing it because I'm paying you for the fact that you lent me the money.
So practically speaking, this would be like the wholesaler goes to the retailer and says, "I will give you $1,000 worth of schleira. You're going to sell it for $2,000, and you're going to pay me back $1,000 plus $500."
Correct.
But you're responsible, if something would go wrong, you're responsible for the value of the
Half of it. No, for half years. For half of it, because half was a milva. Right. That's exactly what it is. Okay. So
it's really disguised. He's giving him $1,000, and you only have to pay me ribbis on the 500 component. The other 500 is just a straight loan. You
could look at it that way, but the fact of the matter is that's what's happening. Half of it is a milva, half of it is a pikotin, and unless I pay him for his services on the half that's a pikotin, then he's obviously doing me this favor. He's working for me for free because of the fact that I gave him a loan. Okay, so up until now, we're discussing work that the entrepreneur has to do, and therefore he gets paid kipoil. Now we're talking about a different case. What if you have chickens and I have eggs? So again, this refers to the very big Velt Shaila. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? So here, a guy has eggs, but he needs chickens to sit on them so that they should hatch. You have chickens. So what I'll do is I'm going to give my eggs to you, and as they hatch, we'll split the profit on the eggs that hatch. Metzia for half. So you're not allowed to do that because once again, I'm lending him half because of the fact that he's providing a free service for the half. And the same. Well, let me just finish the Mishnah. I'm not allowed to have you raise either calves or donkeys for half. Again, unless for your half that he's working on, you have to pay him for that, and you also have to pay him for the food that he's going to have to feed your animal in the meantime. But he's allowed to be makabel to take care of agol and shachim metzah, umegadlen oisan achayu mishuloshin, and you're allowed to have him raise them until they're mishulish, which we'll see what that means. So there you're allowed to. Rashi is going to tell us is because the shomer benefits from the products that are generated by that golem. So what does it mean? You can give animals to the shomer to watch up until they're a third grown. And then, so when does the investment end? When do they sell out? When do you sell the investment? You sell it once it's a third grown. Okay? The chamor megad until it can hold a load. They would raise it, even though the animals are born. They don't right away sell them. The animals that are born, that they're going to sell for a profit, they sell it later. And we're going to see where the pay is going to be over there. Okay, so Zoktei Gemara. Tana, we learned kapoil bottle. You pay the person that's working on your mechse begadoin, you have to pay him kapoil bottle. My kapoil bottle. What does it mean like a kapoil bottle? A kapoil bottle is not doing any work. As Rashi explains, kapoil bottle means you have a job, you make $100 an hour. How much would you be willing to accept that you can sit on the beach chair and relax for an hour? But the problem is, this guy is not a kapoil bottle. This guy is actually working hard, and he's managing your investment. So what does it mean, kapoil bottle, for the Gemara? So turning on to Amud Beis, and for the Gemara, Amar Baye, kapoil bottle shall oisim malacha the bottle manay. Let's say this guy did a very intense job. He was a bricklayer. A bricklayer gets paid $200 an hour. Now he's operating this investment. It's much less work. It's much less difficult work. So you ask the bricklayer, instead of doing back-breaking labor at $200 an hour, you'll do a much easier job. How much do you want to be paid for that? So he says a typical person gets paid for that, let's say $50 an hour. So you ask him, how much would you be willing to work on the lower amount? And that's what you give him. You give him the amount that he would say, listen, I can make 200 an hour. Why should I do a job for 50 an hour? Okay, I'm not going to say I want my full 200 an hour because I'm not going to have to do the backbreaking labor. But to do a job like that, I wouldn't accept 50 an hour. I would still want 100 an hour. So that's what we're talking about. You have to pay him what it's worth it for him, or what it's worth it for a typical employee to do a less difficult job and still get something. So Zok the Gemara, Utricha. And you need the Mishnah to tell me all these cases. If we only have the case of a Chenveni, we pay a pile bottle. Chenveni who the saga like a pile bottle. Maybe only a Chenveni. It's enough if you pay him that amount. You know why? Mishum de loinafish terche. He's not doing such hard work. Avul mois likach ban Paris. But if I'm giving cash, if I gave a guy product and he's just selling it, it's hard, but it's not such a big deal. But if I give him cash and he has to now do the whole investment by himself, the nafish terche, which is much harder work, maybe even that's not enough. Maybe you have to give him even more money so that it should be fair. There's kabaya bottle. You should do the nafish terche because you're working very hard. Maybe you don't have to give him any significant amount. Maybe you can throw him a couple of pennies, and that would be enough. Gemara, Kamash Malon, I feel like Tavalatmoy, a little bit seer, even if you let him share your dip, or you gave him a groigris, one tiny little fig, Zeu Schar, that would be enough, Tricha, that you have to pay him a more serious amount. Okay, we're already running against the clock, but I want to still learn the next brisa, and then we'll stop because it's just different versions of how you pay. Taner Rabbanan, Kama Huschari, Lamaisa, how much do you pay the guy? Zokt, the first sheet is Ben Ruba Ben Mut, different mayor. Whatever you give him, that's more than enough. What's the difference between a mayor and a Yehuda? Where mayor holds that you can give him whatever you want, but it has to be written down in the star. It has to be officially formalized. This is your pay. Rabbi Yehuda, you don't even have to do that. Even if you just sit with him and you let him dip into your ketchup, that's considered good, even if it wasn't formalized. Neither of those shittas for Meir Rabbi Yehuda like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says you got to pay him significantly. Our Mishnah is Abshim ben Yochim. Noishin loischar ben Shalom. You got to pay him in full, which is what our Mishnah is. Tanu Rabbanan. Ain't Shaman lois Ezen lois Rechelim v'lo kol davar sheino oisa b'oichel lemechza. Anything that's eino oisa b'oichel, anything where the person operating this operation, the Ezim, the Rechelim, where he doesn't get any benefit out of them, you have to pay him full. Showing to say Ezim, no, you don't have to pay any extra money for Ezim. You know why? Because the person operating the investment gets to keep the milk that they're producing while this operation is going on. Because you could shear them. Is with the wool that falls off, so that the person doing the operation gets to keep. That's his chayv. Because the lezex, the Tanakama Giza v'cholav. What about the Tanakama? He holds the Giza and cholav wouldn't be enough, right? The Tanakama said they got to pay. The Tanakama Giza v'cholav loisipek l'schar amaloi u'mizayna. That wouldn't be enough. There wouldn't be enough value in there to offset the hard work and the food that the worker has to provide. Everybody holds that if you actually let him take all the shearing and you let him take all the milk, that is a significant amount. And there, avada, you wouldn't have to pay him any extra. Keep ligi, the discussion that we have here is been the syuve the tusri, which is with the whey, the WHEY. It's like the liquid that comes off of the milk, and tusre, I believe, is small little things. Rashi says shtifa samaritas rechelim. I guess little pieces of wool that come off the sheep, very small amount. That's where there's a discussion if that's enough to offset the pay. Tanakama Savala, Reb Shimon Yochai, Damer Noishim L'Schar Ben Shalom. The Tanakama holds these are not significant. You got to pay still. Reb Shimon Savala Kavua Damer Afilu L'Tavalimai Elabetzir. That would be enough. And then we'll have one more brisa. Taner Rabbanan maskeres isha lechaver to tanagoylos b'shnei afreichim. A woman's allowed to let her friend use her tanagoylos to sit on eggs, and she's allowed to charge a set amount like shnei afreichim. Isha she'amr lechaver to tanagoylos shali ubeitzim shalichi. The tanagoylos is mine. The beitzim are yours. V'anivat nachlik v'afreichim, and we'll split afreichim. Yehuda mater, Yehuda is mater, Reb Shimon Yosy. Reb Shimon holds it's not enough because she has to pay. She has to get paid extra for her work. Zok to Gemara, Reb Yehuda leBoyschar Moloi u'Mezaynoi. Reb Yehuda holds that you don't have to pay any extra. Otherwise it looks like ribbis, like we said. There has to be an extra payment for the chelik hatikadon. Zok to Gemara, Ika beitzim muzaris. There's beitzim muzaris, means the eggs that are not going to develop into chickens. Those eggs, the person operating the investment will also get to keep. That could be their schar. You always pay what the normal going rate is to do this investment. It's 56 already. The two dots are there, but it's very late already, so we'll stop. And Bezim will be mamshech tomorrow. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to get set up right on time, so we'll be able to catch up quite easily. Okay, everyone should have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm sorry for the delay today.
Yosy.
Yes.
So first of all, you have the name for today's shir, Hosnach eggs.
Very good. Skaya.
Secondly, you're going to give it 9 o'clock?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because I'm just speaking.
Yeah, I'll be here. I'll be here.
Okay, so
Yosy, I don't understand what the Mishnah is different from the Brayse here. What we're doing? Why the Mishnah says why isn't, as if we said now that it's like a rental if he gets more paid? Why I'm not allowed to rent a chicken to sit on my eggs? What's the problem?
The problem is that we didn't create a fixed amount of what I'm paying rental on your chicken. You're getting a chelik at a schar. If you're getting a chelik at a schar, that means half of it is a milva. The fact that I'm taking 50% of the profit, that's not a rental rate. If you tell me I'm charging you $100 or $5, that's a rental. But here I'm getting a chelik at a profit.
You have 2 eggs. I'm gonna rent you my chicken for one chick. What's the problem?
One chick. What if no chicks are produced? What if they both go bad?
I don't get it.
So then that's not a rental. I mean, that means you're actually sharing the profits with me, which means it's chatzi milva, chatzi pekod. Rental means you have to pay me the rent, whether or not. If I rent a car and say, I rented a car because I was going to do a business deal with it and it didn't go good, so now I don't have to pay you the rental. If it's a fixed amount that I have to pay you no matter what, that would be a rental. Okay, have a wonderful day.